If you're upstairs, come join us downstairs. Tonight we have Shani Syphrett. She's head of marketing and brand at Beam. Beam is a social impact app that empowers users to make an impact on current social issues by donating part of their everyday purchases to causes that they believe in. She'll give you a little more information about that. And differences between ad agencies, brands, in-house agencies, and working in a startup. So last week we talked a little bit about agencies and in-house, and tonight we'll add kind of what it's like to work for startups. So welcome, and thank you for coming today.
Hey everybody, so I'm Shani Syphrett. Can you hear me? Can you hear me now? Great. Okay. So has anyone heard of the phrase full stack marketer? Feel free to be like, no, because I didn't hear about it until someone called me maybe 2 months ago. And I was like, oh, that's what I am. So I'm going to tell the story of how I became a full stack marketer, but I'm also going to leave you with some practical advice, something that I use fairly on a daily basis, which is the one-page marketing plan. So what is a full stack marketer? So a full stack marketer is someone who has working knowledge of everything marketing and advertising. So, and is also able to execute campaigns from start to finish without much external resources. So think of one-person marketing teams or one-person advertising teams. So full-stack marketers are disruptive and fun. But full-stack marketers have options. So this idea of maybe you're passionate about a ton of things, this is something that you can explore. So maybe you're not just creative, but you're also really analytical. You can't just write copy, but you also like doing images. Becoming a full stack marketer is a way for you to explore all those things. So, truth. I was not a disruptive kid. So I did not think that I was going to do anything too spectacular. I was pretty shy. But now I get to do disruptive things daily. I did not plan to become an advertiser. I actually wanted to be a doctor when I was younger because I didn't know what an advertiser was. But my role model was The Cosby Show. I mean, it's really problematic now, but when I was younger, it was definitely, I looked to Claire and Cliff Huxtable as role models. But now I lead brand strategy and marketing for a funded startup. So, it's been a journey for me. So in college, I actually studied biology because I wanted to be a doctor, but I actually minored in art because I had always been interested in doing things creative. I just didn't think that I could make money doing them. Then I went to grad school in architecture, wanted to become an architect, studied architecture and interior design. It was a way for me to kind of merge the technical stuff that I learned from biology, so things like physics and things like human behavior with the creative stuff. And after architecture school, and I'll tell you how I made this transition, I moved into ad and marketing agencies where I was a strategist and kind of an all-over creative. So I was the type of person where if it was a new and interesting campaign, they would just be like, give it to her, she'll figure it out. And now I work for a tech startup. So it's been a journey for me. And I'll talk to you a little bit about how I got there. Where you start doesn't have to be where you end up. So how many people thought they wanted to be in advertising when they grew up? That was like the thing that they wanted to do. Just one. So no one else. But you're here now, so you know there's options, there's ways that you can kind of turn your career around and use the skills that you have to do something interesting. So I went to architecture school. I went to Boston Architectural College, and I got my master's there. And it's a small school in Boston. It's pretty old. And I got to do an independent study kind of curriculum where I was looking at how branded spaces affect the way people shop. And my big study was on Marshalls. So I loved Marshalls. I loved the shopping. I loved the value. I thought the experience of going and shopping there was terrible. Later on, as I got into marketing and advertising, I realized that that meant that it had a great value proposition, but it had a terrible user experience. So I would say pay attention to the things that got you excited in the very beginning. So I didn't know that my thoughts around Marshalls would be my thoughts around brand strategy. So I would say pay attention to the things you're interested in now. If you're interested in reading, if you're interested in video games, it could be steps that will take you to an interesting marketing and advertising career. The next thing for me is I took a job with HGTV. So I worked on a television show called The High Low Project. And what we did is we made over a room for, it was over $5,000. This one isn't the best illustration, but it was over $5,000. And then we did it for a more affordable price. And that taught me to not be afraid to take a non-traditional route. So though I was studying architecture, I got into a job with HGTV where I was doing rapid iterations on concepts. So it was this idea that we would spend a week designing something for a ridiculous budget, and then we would turn it around and do it for a smaller budget. So this idea of fitting things into timelines, fitting things into budgets, and then also having clients. So at HGTV, most people don't know that HGTV is a huge advertiser, so most of the things that are on the shows are kind of advertising space for brands. So Target was my big client, and it was about how many pieces of Target furniture could I get into an episode without it being overt, without it seeming like it was a Target episode. So I was able to use some of the concepts that people use for advertising in something that people wouldn't think would be an advertising job. So in leaving architecture school, I had to choose between the two industries. I could go to an architecture firm, or I could go to an ad agency. Because I had built these relationships with Target, we'd also worked with HGTV magazine. I was beginning to get introduced to the ad community. And someone suggested, hey, maybe you should try going into the ad industry. And the more and more I interviewed and thought about it, I realized that it was about the same process. Both architecture firms and advertising firms do the creative process. They normally have clients. Again, there's normally a budget and a time frame. So it was very comparable to what I was doing already. But I had an offer for an architecture firm, and my offer for the ad industry was twice as much. So I decided to take the ad agency job. And the reason why I was able to get that job, and this was the ad agency that I joined, it's called AMP Agency. It's an agency in Boston. And I joined as their production manager. So most people who normally come in to an agency is maybe on the coordinator level. But I was able to become a production manager because I could read architectural drawings. So AMP Agency was an agency that dealt with a lot of retailers. So they did a lot of store design. They did a lot of in-store messaging. They did a lot of in-store traditional marketing and direct mail. And because I could read architectural drawings, I was able to leverage my background in an interesting way. So I was able to skip over, maybe coming in as an intern or a coordinator and go directly to a production manager at this agency because of the talent that I had. Thanks. So all this is to say is to flaunt your difference because it can be your advantage. So maybe you're coming from an industry that you think isn't really related, but your knowledge from that industry could help you towards furthering and expediting your career. So if you may have come from a law practice, maybe you're dealing with an agency that deals with lawyers, and they have to write ad copy for lawyers, and understanding that all the regulations, and lawyers have a ton of regulations of how they can advertise and where they can advertise, you can provide an interesting perspective. So the agency I did join was an integrated marketing, digital marketing agency. They also did a ton of experiential and in-store work. So though I came in for the experiential and in-store route, I was exposed to a ton of other things. So I was exposed to print, TV, SEO, PPC, strategy, planning, email, social media, websites, branding, direct mail, and community. And because it was an agency that would do integrated campaigns, I made sure that I asked a ton of questions. I attended as many meetings as I could. If there was a brainstorm, I raised my hand, even if I didn't know what it was about. I just wanted to know everything. And because I was in an agency that did integrated campaigns, we were able to launch some fun things. So we did the relaunch of Furby. Does anyone remember Furby? Yes. So we did a relaunch for Furby for millennials at the time, which was interesting. They wanted to relaunch Furby in a nostalgic way, but also connected something that Gen Z would be interested in. So we did Furby Connect. So it was the same toy with the funny sayings, and maybe you don't know when it shuts off, but you could also put it in an interactive world. So I was able to work with a fully integrated team where we did a television ad, we did the rebranding for Furby, so a whole new logo. We also did a Furby mobile, so we covered a Mini Cooper with fur, and we drove it around New York and LA and Chicago to advertise the campaign. We also built a website so that you could register and connect your Furby into a world. And then we did the community. So once you registered, once you signed in, it was people talking back and forth about Furby. So because I was in an integrated marketing firm, I was able to get exposure to something like this. So be curious and ask questions, and always say yes, especially if you're in a place that has a ton of things that you could be doing and you're not sure exactly what you want to do. Say yes to things. You never know where it will take you. And the worst thing that can happen is that you can figure out what you don't want to do. And knowing what you don't want to do is half the journey. So my tip 5.5 would also be to stretch yourself. So I will say that I have worked in agencies, and I also have worked in brands. And once you come in the door as a specific role, sometimes you have to stretch yourself to do something different. Your boss may not give you the chance to do it, but be willing to ask. So if you come in as a strategist, but maybe you're interested in photography, maybe you want to do something as part of the physical creative team, ask questions. Don't always expect your boss to give you the shot. So the next thing is the logo soup of places that I worked and things that I've done. So because I was able to leverage all the things that I learned across digital marketing, across experiential, across print, across TV, across email marketing, I was able to work with a ton of different brands on a ton of different campaigns. So everything from Maybelline, I did their college marketing tour around Fashion Week. So Maybelline would sponsor all the fashion shows of the top fashion schools. So Parsons, RISD, SCAD, and they would come and do a makeup. So they would make it a big presentation like it was Fashion Week. All the way to the rebrand of MetLife, which it may seem kind of boring, but it was really interesting. So MetLife recently rebranded, and they got rid of Snoopy. So most people were used to Snoopy in MetLife, but they replaced Snoopy in 60 countries. So it was a really interesting campaign where we not only took Snoopy off advertising, but we had to take Snoopy off buildings. So in some places, in Japan, there is a MetLife Snoopy wing of a hospital. So we had to figure out, okay, if this is no longer the brand message, what does it need to be? And what we eventually came up with was a campaign called Clearly Human. So moving away from it being cartoon characters and insurance being something that you don't understand to being something that you can completely understand, and making sure that in all their advertising and all their marketing, you were presented images of people who looked like you. So though I did a ton of things, and I did say that being a full stack marketer gives you a ton of options. What you want to do is you want to do one thing really well and then make sure you do that thing everywhere. So for me, I always led with strategy because it was kind of the least common denominator. Everyone needed someone to think. Everyone needed someone to process information. Everyone needed someone who could present the insights to creative. Everyone needed someone who could talk to the client about the trends. So I personally picked strategy, and that's what I led with. But because I had a ton of other experiences, I was able to integrate into teams big and small. But you also want to leverage the things that you're passionate about. So beyond strategy, beyond advertising, what I'm really passionate about is representation of women of color in marketing and creative and innovative fields. So beyond the work that I do in advertising with startups, I also write for Forbes, and I write about women of color in leadership positions, and I also curate a blog on medium.com, which is perspectives of marketing and advertising with women of color, and that's called the What's Her Name. So embrace your side hustles. Just because you're working in the advertising industry doesn't mean that needs to be the only thing that you're doing. Make sure that you do have time to do the things that you are the most passionate about, and it also adds to your overall skill set. So do you have any questions about my journey? I know I went through it very, very fast. Great. Oh, we got a question back there.
Hi. Can you talk a little bit about work? I saw you did Maybelline and Sephora. Can you talk a little bit about working for beauty brands and like what you did for them in that process?
Sure. So with Maybelline and Sephora, so Maybelline, I mentioned it was a college marketing tour, and it was sampling. So it was making sure that the stuff that they were presenting on all of their beautiful ad campaigns, people actually got to try. And then at the time, it was 2012 that I was working with them. They were just building their social media presence. So it was getting people to sample and then getting people to share on social media. So I was able to work with them for about a year and a half to build their their social media presence. We worked specifically with influencers back before they were called influencers to kind of lead the charge. So we worked with a makeup artist, we worked with a model, and we worked with the woman who won Parsons' fashion show, student fashion show, and they populated Maybelline's Instagram when it was just starting with their content, and then we got other people to share.
What are some obstacles you've had to overcome in your position?
I would say because I'm kind of a jack of all trades, figuring out where people can place me has been the biggest obstacle. Because my experience is so diverse and so varied, a lot of times people don't know where to recommend me for. So that's why I said make sure that you're focused on one thing and that you're pushing out that you can do that very well. So if you are someone who's multi-passionate, great for you, but when it comes to recommendations, sometimes it makes it hard for people to recommend you. So I would say focus on doing something really well, focus on being known for doing something really well, and then when you get your foot in the door, wow them with everything else you can do. Great. So just wanted to give you a practical takeaway of something that I use in my day-to-day as someone who is a full-stack marketer and who's looking at branding and marketing and advertising campaigns as a whole. So a lot of times I'm a marketing and advertising team of one. So this is something that I use every day. So a marketing plan, a one-page marketing plan, as I mentioned, is a way to look at an entire campaign in one page and then rapidly iterate. So this is something that you can also use in advertising agencies if you're presenting a client with an idea and then maybe the night before they call and they say, hey, we're halving the budget, or hey, can you do this campaign but for children in Minnesota? So this is a way that you can rapidly change kind of your concept. So this is what it looks like. So it looks like a lot, but if you want to take a photo, I'll talk through it. So this is what it looks like. So again, it is a way for you to look at all of the things that go into creating a marketing campaign in one fail shot. So you're looking at your objectives. So what are the 1 or 2 things that you want this campaign to achieve? And then you want to look at your key metrics. So how do you determine success for a campaign? And you also want to look at your budget. How much money do you have to spend, and where do you want to spend it? And then you want to look at the status. So where's your brand now? What did you do so far that worked? What could you do to improve? If anyone is familiar with a business plan, this would be like your SWOT analysis. Like, what are your strengths, your weaknesses, your opportunities, and threats? So ways that you can improve and ways that you can continue to do the things that went well. Then you're looking at your value proposition. So what is the most compelling and valuable thing about your brand? So what makes your brand interesting to your customers? What can your brand do that no other brands can do? And then you want to look at your messaging. So this is your campaign message. So the key thing that your campaign would be, if it is how Airbnb has belong anywhere, that would be your brand message. And then you want to look at the competitive landscape. So who else is out there doing the same thing? If you're a shoe brand, if you're Under Armour, and you're looking to create a campaign, this is where you would put what Nike is doing. So you make sure that you're individual. And then, of course, you want to figure out who you're talking to. Who's your target audience? Try to be as specific as possible. Then you're looking at your timeline. How long do you have to take to create this campaign? How long do you want to run? And then finally, your channels. So normally, in an advertising agency, this is split up across a ton of different departments. So mostly for your account, they'll come up with the objectives, your account team, because they're probably going to get that from the client. The same thing with your target audience. So these are all client information that if your client is really good at understanding their audience and their objectives, they'll give you this. But sometimes your strategist will have to do this. Your account team would also tell you your budget and your timeline. And also your key metrics. So how do you want to measure success? So for clients, it could be a measure of success is shoes purchased. And then your strategist will come up with your value proposition. So this is what makes your brand the most interesting, the most compelling thing in your market. And then where are you now? So your strategist will come up with the competitive landscape and how you do well in it. Then your planner will figure out your channels, where you're going to go, whether this is going to be on social, whether this is going to be a traditional TV campaign, whether this is going to be SEO, whether you're going to pay for search words. So this is where your planner will come in. And then your art director and your copywriter normally works on the messaging, so the creative overall product. So this is normally how a marketing or advertising campaign comes together. It normally takes a couple of weeks to do this, but this is all in one page. So if you ever had to go really fast, or if you ever needed to do it by yourself, this is how you would do it. You're welcome. And I have an example. So if you're just like, okay, this looks really big, how does this even make sense? I wanted to give you guys an example. So if you've seen right now, Warby Parker is just starting their television commercials. And it seems like they're looking to attract an older audience because they seem to have gotten, the millennials and the Gen Zers with Instagram and digital advertising. But now they're going into direct mail and print because they're trying to get your mom. So for them, their objective is to get more free trials. Warby Parker's big value proposition is you get to try on 5 pairs at home. But it's not something that maybe your mom knows. So they want to figure out how do you tell your mom this? So for them, this new campaign, their channels are TV and direct mail. So maybe your mom doesn't really get Facebook ads. Maybe she, really is not on Instagram like that. But she may be watching HGTV. So she'll definitely see Warby Parker's new campaign on HGTV. And we just said the target audience was Gen X moms. And the value proposition being the durable glasses with affordable pricing, how do you portray that to a new audience? They know what do really well. So they have really good millennial brand affinity. But right now, Warby Parker is not endorsed by any optometrist. So that's probably where your mom gets her glasses. She gets her checkup, and then her doctor recommends a glasses manufacturer. And she probably takes whatever he recommends. How can Warby Parker get your mom before she pays for those overpriced glasses that her doctor recommends? And then we look at the budget. We look at the timeline. Right now, they're doing this around back to school, so in this August and September window. And their messaging seems to be around who says only the kids get new swag. So this is how they're talking to moms. They're coming to them in a channel where they are, television. They're presenting something valuable to them, which is affordable glasses that are still cool. And this is the budget that they have for it. So this is how Warby Parker would present a one-page marketing plan. Great. You're all looking at me like eyes glazed. I know that was a ton of things.
What is Warby Parker?
Oh, does not everyone know what Warby Parker is? So Warby Parker is a glasses brand. So they sell glasses, and their value proposition is they sell glasses, $95 glasses. That's the frames, that's everything, when most glasses cost $250 each. And they're direct to consumer, so that you don't have to go through your doctor to get them. You can go online, you can order them, and they'll also send 5 test pairs home so you can try them on. And their thought is you can try them on, you can show them to your friends, you can take pictures of them, and then you get to choose which one you like, and then they'll send you the glasses with your prescription once you like them. Great, sorry, I assumed everyone knew what Warby Parker was. Maybe I should have explained their value proposition beforehand.
I'm just curious, I have a question.
Yep.
What do they define as Gen X moms, like the age? I'm just curious.
Yeah, so Gen X moms would be anyone born before 1977 is the millennial cutoff. So 1977, and the generation is normally 20 years, so.
20 to 40? No, because like 1977 would have been 41.
Yes, and then before then, so like 57 to 47. So millennials are 77 to, I think it's, yeah. So millennials are just 21. The youngest ones are just 21.
And it goes to 77 millennials or 80? I thought millennials was 80.
So millennials are 77 to 89. I think the oldest millennial is 38.
Yeah.
Is the way that they're finding it. The oldest millennial is 38. So Gen X would be anyone older than 38 within the 20 years. So between, sorry, I'm doing math on the spot. So anyone between 39 and, what is it? 50, yeah. Yeah, so right now they know that they're not going to reach that specific demographic on digital marketing. They're not going to reach them on Facebook channels, so they're looking at another channel to reach them. So they know that these women, these Gen X moms, are still watching television. They're still getting things in the mail, so this is how they're now targeting them.
But why wouldn't they be on Facebook?
It's not that they're not on Facebook.
No, but meaning why wouldn't they be using Facebook also for this?
Yeah, so it's not the most effective channel for them to reach them. So right now, I work in a startup, and we look a lot at cost per acquisition. And the cost per acquisition, the difference between how much it charges for you to reach a millennial and someone in Gen X, it's about twice as much. So cost per acquisition for a millennial, my company is an app, is about $5.60, and it gives up to $10 to $12 for Gen X, just because they're just not used to clicking on ads. So you will get some, it's just not the most effective channel to spend their money. Make sense? Great. Any other questions? Questions about maybe you don't know where you want to go after this. Maybe you're interested in being a full-stack marketer. Maybe you want to join a startup.
Your company is based in Boston or?
New York. So my company is based in New York.
Do you have any in Miami?
You said what?
You guys in Miami or just New York?
No, just in New York. So we are in New York and we are in Rhode Island for right now. So we are a funded startup. We just got funded 4 months ago, and we are 9 months old. Yeah. So this is my first foray into the technology world. Before then, I was working in advertising agencies. So I did advertising agencies, and then I worked in-house. I was doing global marketing at The Gap, and then I consulted for a while. And the app that I'm working with now, they were a consulting client. I built out their branding strategy. And then they hired me to be their full-stack head of marketing. Great.
Hello. I was wondering, how does